Over the last few years, the Houston Rockets have been one of the most interesting teams to analyze and talk about. We know that they've been led by MVP player James Harden over the last few years, and because of a combination of things like James Harden's really self-centered playstyle and the fact that he's always had a pretty mediocre supporting cast around him, they've never been able to take that next step and get over to the hump and eventually win an NBA championship. And as we know, this has now led to a huge controversy with James Harden in the 2020 and 2021 season. As we know, he's asked for a trade and really wants out of Houston, and over the last few weeks, he's really been a huge pain in the butt to the Houston Rockets. He's not cooperating at all for them, and because of this leads us to think that James Harden will be traded very soon. But in today's video, I'm actually going to be going through a big reason why I think James Harden might actually end up staying in Houston and changing his mind about the Houston Rockets and wanting to be there. This is going to be a very interesting video, and as I mentioned, I have one specific reason why he might change his mind here. Before we get started, make sure you guys follow me on Instagram. I've created a new account specifically for my channel. I'll provide updates and post NBA polls on that page, so follow me there. It's danieldelari.yt. Definitely be sure to drop a follow on that Instagram page, and for any of you guys that are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on any new videos. So to start off the video, I'm going to go through a brief summary of what the Houston Rockets have done over the last year or so. So as we know, before the 2019-20 NBA season, they were trying to get over the hump, and at the trade deadline last season, we all know that they made the big decision to go all in on small ball. They traded away Clint Capella and really played this interesting style where the floor was spaced for James Harden and at the time Russell Westbrook on the team fully so that they could operate, do their thing on the offensive end, and then on the defensive end they had this very interesting style of defense where basically everything would be switched, and they had a lot of guys switching onto whoever they were guarding down low with the big man. So it was a very switchable style of defense, and on both ends of the floor, I actually think this worked really well for them. Like I mentioned, on offense, it was basically the perfect fit for James Harden, and on defense, it was a really interesting style of defense which ranked them close to the top 10 in the league in defense. But ultimately, they still couldn't get it done in the playoffs with this system, and the shooters that were around James Harden and Russell Westbrook weren't good enough to win a championship. But in the offseason, they made some very interesting moves. First of all, they signed Christian Wood to a 3-year, $41 million deal, and what this means is that they were going to be going away from small ball. And originally, I was a little bit skeptical of this because I think it worked really well for them, but ultimately they had to try something different to try to get a championship winning player into the mix. And ultimately, Christian Wood, believe it or not, is the guy that I think is the chosen one to keep James Harden around, and I'm going to be giving a lot more reasons why he is later in the video. But as we know, they also traded Russell Westbrook for John Wall and signed DeMarcus Cousins, but they moved away from small ball, and they've now moved on from that because it wasn't enough to win them a championship. So now moving on to Christian Wood. Christian Wood is a guy that you've probably heard of recently and maybe last season, because last season post All-Star break is really when he broke out as a player. He's a guy that in 2015 was expected to go in the first round of the NBA draft and ended up going undrafted. He ended up bouncing around from team to team and playing in the G League and the Summer League, and despite being one of the best players in the G League and the Summer League, he never really got a full opportunity to play on an NBA team. But last year in 2019, the Pistons got him onto their roster, and he was playing backup center for them and putting up pretty steady numbers for a role player. But then when they traded Andre Drummond, he came into that starting center role and absolutely took off. He averaged over 20 points per game for the rest of the season and became a free agent. And as I mentioned, the Rockets picked him up and signed him to a 3-year, $41 million deal. And now so far this season, he's picked up exactly from where he left off last season and even better. He's been averaging 24 points per game, 10 rebounds per game, and having an incredible overall game over the first 5 games of the season. And I know it's only 5 games, but for him, stats don't even tell the full story. He's really proven over this season and last that he is now a very good three-point shooter on the offensive end of the floor, shooting 38% from 3 last year, so he can stretch the floor. He's a very good inside scorer, can post up, can body people inside, and is very crafty at finishing around the rim. On defense, he's a pretty good rebounder and shot blocker. At times he can be a little unaware on the defensive end, but so far this season he's ranking in the top 10 in both blocks and rebounds, and he can also hold his own against smaller guards, guarding the perimeter, and is very versatile on that end of the floor. But the most important part of his game is his pick and roll production. Last season, Christian Wood ranked in the 95th percentile in the pick and roll as the roll man, and that's when he was on the Detroit Pistons. He was running pick and rolls with Derrick Rose, who, as we know, is not in his prime anymore, and really a bunch of different point guards that were trying to prove themselves on an NBA team, and he ranked in the 95th percentile there. Imagine what he can do now on the Houston Rockets with James Harden and John Wall. He's going to be catching lobs like it's nothing and scoring a ton of points in the pick and roll, and probably being the best roll man in the league statistically. And this is why I really think he's the perfect fit for James Harden. When we look back at the other stars that James Harden has played with, he really hasn't played with a player that he's enjoyed playing with and thinks that he can win a championship with. We look at Chris Paul. He ended up being traded away because him and James Harden didn't necessarily get along on the court. We look at Russell Westbrook. That looked like it was going okay, but ultimately it didn't work out because their play styles clashed and they weren't able to play at a championship caliber level. But if Christian Wood really truly is an all-star level player that could be considered a top 40 or even top 30 player by the end of this year, this is huge for the Houston Rockets because this might be the first player ever that's an all-star caliber player that James Harden actually enjoys playing with. Like I mentioned, Christian Wood is incredible in the pick and roll, and not only is this something that Harden could like, but it's something that the team is absolutely gonna love. And Steven Silas said before this season that he doesn't just want James Harden to be isolating every play like he has been doing over the last few years for the Houston Rockets. Yes, he's gonna have those plays where he's isolating, doing his dribble moves and taking step backs, but if there's a lot of plays where he's running a pick and roll with Christian Wood, it is literally going to be a lethal duo. And like I mentioned, not something that's just good for the team and Christian Wood, but good for James Harden because this is finally a player that he legitimately enjoys playing with. And I know it's really early in the season, and I think James Harden and Christian Wood have only played like 3 games together, but so far, they are the leading scoring duo in the NBA, putting up a combined 56 points per game, with James Harden's 33 per game and Christian Wood's 23.6 per game. So if they can keep this up over the season, Christian Wood is a guy that I can see keeping James Harden in Houston because he's a player that he finally enjoys playing with. And overall, now that James Harden could potentially be happy and he has Christian Wood with him, along with John Wall, and really a different style of play potentially for this Houston Rockets team, I'm not saying they're going to win the championship, but it might be something that finally puts them in the category of a championship caliber team. A player like Christian Wood is exactly what they need, and I give so much credit to the Houston Rockets front office for picking Wood up on a 3-year, $41 million deal, and really him being their secret weapon that they've needed for a long time, and also making the John Wall trade, which I think they're going to benefit from, not because I think Russell Westbrook is worse than John Wall, but because John Wall is what makes James Harden happy as well. So in conclusion, it's a really bold take, but I think that Christian Wood is the type of player that James Harden will really enjoy playing with, and something that could keep him with the Houston Rockets. So there you have it. That's my bold take on this situation with James Harden and the Rockets. I mean, if he gets traded tomorrow, I still wouldn't be surprised, but I'm just saying that Christian Wood is potentially the type of player that he's really going to enjoy playing with, and something that really could keep him around. The last thing I'll say before I end off this video is to any of you guys that watched the video that I made a couple of weeks ago on this channel of 10 most improved player candidates that I see potentially winning the award before the season, one of my candidates was Christian Wood, and I'm sure many other NBA fans around the game had Christian Wood as a favorite for the most improved player race, and he's really emerged as the favorite now. And for me, he's my official prediction for the award. I think if he keeps this up, he's easily going to win that award. And as you guys know, I've said it many times throughout the video, but my bold take is he might be what it takes to keep James Harden in Houston. Thank you all for watching this video. This is a really interesting take that I'm putting out here. And for you guys, definitely feel free to leave your takes on this big situation with James Harden and the Rockets in the comments. Let me know what you think of this video. Let me know what you think of Christian Wood and this whole situation. As I mentioned, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next video.